Hi, everyone. We've reached the end of the month, so we're going to recap some of the great conversations that have been going on in the Humanizing Work community.
If you've had a busy month and haven't been able to stay as engaged with the community as you'd like, this recap will serve as a quick highlight reel. We'll link to the original conversations in the posts so you can go deeper on any topics that spark your interest.
Here are the highlights for June 2022, and we start with our first Friday sessions with our conference alumni community. And our topic this month was on trust. What is it? How do you build it? And wow, this was a powerful and wide-ranging conversation on this topic. We talked about building trust in a new relationship or team, maintaining trust once it's built, what to do when it's lost. And there were several definitions and models of trust that various community members shared. Many participants shared some tough situations and relationships in a really beautiful and vulnerable way, and that allowed us to dig into the real application of this topic rather than stay kind of at the theoretical level.
There was an interesting kind of meta realization for us that because we've built trust with this group over many years, that makes it possible to go into an open-ended conversation like this with confidence that it'll be valuable somehow, instead of feeling like we have to really tightly facilitate or teach something for it to be useful. We could take on an interesting question and be confident that this group would go somewhere interesting with us. And that's exactly what happened. At the end of the session, we asked what people were taking away from the discussion, and the key points included the trust equation, the importance of listening and self-awareness, thinking more about competence and character and how they relate to trust, and the value of Brené Brown's Braving Inventory for defining and evaluating trust. So if any of those things sound intriguing to you, you're definitely going to want to go back and check out the recording from this session.
The second Friday of the month was dedicated to our Scrum Master community of practice. And our topic during the month of June was one-day sprints, which is really an overview of something we call the team launch sequence. And during this session, Peter was out camping, I think with one of his children, and joined us from the wilds of Arizona, which you will see when you view the recording.
Yeah, it was quite lovely. In fact, from my camp chair, I kind of walked through this team launch sequence, which is a product that we've built out that kind of includes some facilitation guides, Miro board, some concepts, and provides a structure for teams that are new to Agile or that kind of want to reboot or just want to tune things up to relaunch or to launch for the first time. And it's made up of a few key components. The first of those is one-day sprints. So we kind of explained our reasoning behind why one-day sprints and what are the trade-offs of that, but what benefits the team gets from doing that for a constrained period of time. And then the team launch sequence also has a series of what we call boosters, which are 90-minute working sessions where we provide the facilitation guide and the Miro tools to do all this. And those boosters are team vision, working agreement, kind of a choose your own adventure backlog tune-up, which we'll refer to in the next session when we recap that. And we walked through the basics of the approach, kind of shared how the facilitation guides can be used for internal coaches and facilitators to either just do it how we do it, or sometimes to take an inspired by approach, depending on their level of experience and confidence facilitating any of these topics.
There were lots of great ideas for how to use the TLS as we sell it, along with great ideas, as Peter mentioned, for how participants might take an idea from the TLS and apply it even without using the full model. There was great discussion with lots of input and contributions from the community, as per usual. So check out the recording to learn all about the TLS and some of the great ideas shared by the community.
Turning to third Friday in the product owner community, we decided to take a deep dive into the backlog tune-up booster from Team Launch Sequence and explain why we designed it the way we did. Out of all the different things that a team could do to tune up or create a backlog, why did we structure it the way we did? So we walked through the design, we talked about those choices. I shared why Marie Kondo has the secret to dealing with loss aversion on Agile teams. And then along the way, community members shared their experience for how they've helped teams get their backlog in better shape when it wasn't looking so great. Uh, Tom dropped a killer vocabulary word in natural conversation, sclerotic, which you can look up or hear the discussion about on the video. And finally, we talked about the more general concept behind TLS and one-day sprints, including how to influence team members and stakeholders to give it a try for a period of time for a team that needs a reset.
And then our fourth Friday is our leadership community. And this was a kind of working session kind of topic, because as we have introduced and worked with lots of teams, introduced lots of teams to the 3 jobs of management model, we've recognized that there are clear jobs to be done related to management, but that there are also learnable skills that are not represented on that model, but that are enablers for managers to do the jobs well. And they're not the jobs themselves, but they're the way that effective leaders do those jobs. And so we wanted to kind of make this a working session with that leadership community to say, what are we missing here? Is it clear? Is this just something that should be part of the model itself? And so we invited that group to collaborate with us. And as we had that discussion, boy, the input is always great from this community. A few things got clearer. For example, the line between the focus areas in that 3 jobs of management model and skills is a little bit fuzzy, and it would help us to clarify what a focus area is versus what a skill is. Another thing that became really clear is that as in one part of the discussion, we asked people to suggest, hey, what's missing? What other skills do you see really effective leaders using as they do these jobs? And we realized that several of the suggestions came from or were represented by competencies on the leadership circle model. That helped us to recognize that that's just a lens we see the model through almost tacitly, and distinguishing between creative competencies and these meta skills that we're trying to lock down is a little tricky. And I think one of the key takeaways for me is that it's going to be important for us to distinguish between what are trainable skills versus what is part of a developmental journey. There are some things that, while we all wish that every leader was a better listener or was more composed in times of stress, those are related to stages of development, to an increased complexity of mind, not just an ability to do a thing. It's not something that can just be taught in a workshop and people will pick it up. And one of the metaphors that I've heard used by the leadership circle folks is that moving from one stage of development to another is like changing an operating system. And then within an operating system, you can install lots of apps. And so there was an example discussion of leaders being more vulnerable, having more empathy, more self-awareness. Those are all related to stages of development. And any of the skills that we might introduce here might be useful, but we get into that discussion quite a bit. So the last point that I'll make here is that someone taking a workshop on, for example, facilitation will pick up useful skills no matter their development stage. And so that's one of the meta skills that we're thinking of describing related to the model. And then as a leader develops through developmental stages, they'll become even more capable in facilitation. They'll be able to do it more deeply. So it was a really interesting discussion. Definitely one to check out for all of the details on it, to learn more about what we're thinking there, kind of as the next evolution of that 3 jobs of management model.
So if you're interested in checking out the recordings, existing community members can do that by accessing links to the recordings on the community space. Our communities are made up of alumni of our courses and our annual conference, which is coming up in September. So if that's you and you want to get in on the discussions as they happen, reach out and we'll get you the info to register.